My name is Leo Lake. I graduated from Esmond High School in 1949 and started my degree then. Washed out in 51, there was a little flood here. And then I went out and taught school for 2 years up at Hill City. And Uncle Sam wanted me. I came back and finished my first degree in 1957. Continued on in summer school to get my graduate degree in 1962. The laboratory school is simply where a group of students attend, whether it be mostly generally in the summertime, because that's when teachers are coming back to get their degree, and they have to have a certain amount of experience teaching. And so they take students in the lab school and will teach them for a period of, well, it seems to me it was probably more like 6-8 weeks back then, but I'm not sure the timing on that. When I was 6 years old, my mother came back to summer school after my father died. I'd also lost a brother in the 6 months before that. And as you can imagine, I was hanging on to anything that was permanent. And when I went to lab school, I was scared to death, and Rosella McCarroll took me under her wing, taught me how to feed the fish in order to make me begin to feel at home, walking around the fish pond many, many times in the next 3 years. Probably one of my favorite FHSU was, before it was a university, by the way, was back when they had the old rope pull across Big Creek, where people would either gather to be a part of the team or to cheer one team or the other on to see who was going to end up in the water. I do remember full well as a freshman that you had to wear your beanie, and I always had my beanie on. I never had to go through the belt line. It was very necessary for me to work to get through college, because as I left home with $17 in my pocket and no help from home. And so my doctor bills, whatever it might have been, that was on me, to say nothing of the experiences. So I managed to work at different places. I worked with Mrs. Landrum for a while. I actually started at the dairy for a while, enjoyed that. Ended up working at the old Tiger Grill just across the campus, a place that students crowded into far more than buildings would allow these days. But it was a wonderful experience because you got to know so many of the students. You got to learn how to deal with people. And that was a big help to me on down the road, because I spent a lifetime of dealing with people. But it was very difficult to find any job that was going to be any more than just the campus rate. And so you spent as much time as you could adding on. When I had a chance to be an assistant with the Reveille staff, I jumped at it because it paid a tiny little bit, because it was one more dollar that you had to spend. So it was very important. Even coming back then, I was able to be a little better off because I did have the GI Bill for at least part of my expenses. But even so, as you go on through life and develop, start your family and all, and I'm still trying to get a master's degree, it's still the same story. But I think truly it didn't hurt me anywhere along the way. I don't think it hurt me a bit to spend a lot of hours working off campus, on campus, wherever there was a few dollars to be made. School was just about out. All we had left was finals. Maud McMinus, who taught at the university, lived in the apartment just above us down on 6th Street. We heard her yelling at us at the top of her lungs about midnight. Couldn't understand for sure what she was saying. We looked out the window and the cars were floating down the street like bumper cars. We then, along with the Mark Millers who lived in the other apartment upstairs, moved everything on the first floor up to the top of the building in about 30 minutes. Took 2 men 4 hours to get it back down the next day. But then a big Halliburton truck came in the next day and picked us up, took us out to the outside. The university was through for the summer. President Cunningham had just returned from giving a commencement address, and he described his experience as saying, "Only God and the Pontiac in reverse got me out of this," because it was literally a wall of water that swept across the campus. And so school was over. No finals, no nothing. Everything just had to stop and start fresh from the library to, everything was destroyed. Nobody had to take a final, and everybody passed. So just wasn't any option. Another Fort Hays person was a big help to me, because Dolly B. Thomas, who was the business teacher here and later became secretary for President Cunningham, called me. Her husband was Leo, and he had passed away a year or so before, and she said she understood I'd lost everything, and I said yes, and she said, "Well, come by, I want to give you some of my husband's clothes." So the flood brought good things and bad things, but people were so generous.